Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and it's my pleasure and an honor to introduce, sitting next to me, United States Senator Bill Cassidy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, Jacob, thank you for having me. Good to talk to the people in the Bayou.
All right. One thing that's on everybody's mind in the Bayou is, of course, the National Flood Insurance Program. It's with the new risk rating 2.0, seen substantial increases in rates, and I know there's some things that you're looking at to try to do. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we got a short-term, intermediate, and long-term approach to flood insurance and flooding. First, we recognize 2.0 is hitting people, hitting them in the face. My gosh, this is just raising rates too much for people who can't afford it. The president could stop it with just a stroke of a pen. There's no law that they have to raise these premiums so rapidly, but he refuses to do so. Well, we just introduced legislation that would put a cap on how much the premiums could rise per year, and that cap is roughly where it is now. We'd also, in this legislation, give a little bit of help to those lower income people who could not afford their premiums, but we define lower income generously. A lot of middle income families would see some benefits from that. We do other things to make the program more affordable, accountable, and sustainable. We're trying to build a coalition to make it happen. I'm working with a Democratic senator from New Jersey, as well as Clay Higgins from Louisiana, and another Democratic congressman from New Jersey. So we got both the House and the Senate, we got Democrats and Republicans, and we got two different regions affected. We're hoping by putting together this coalition, we can pass it. Second thing we're doing, in the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, there's $3 billion to help lower the risk of flooding, prioritizing communities that have flooded in the last 10 years. Now, that's Louisiana.
Sure.
I'm told we have submitted as much as 50% of the claims to the National Flood Insurance Program. That means, theoretically, we could get $1.5 billion to help lower the risk of flooding. Now, one way to decrease your insurance premium is to decrease your risk of flooding. Lastly, related to that and related to both, we also, in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and you know this, Jacob, we're able to secure money for coastal restoration. There's $3 billion prioritizing areas of our country hit by natural disasters in the last 6 years. That's like Louisiana.
Sure.
Period, end of story. We've already got something like $370 million in one chunk, and in the next 2 years, we got roughly $50 to $60 million. That's going from Organza to the Gulf and other flood control and rebuilding initiatives that can further decrease risk of flooding. Decrease your insurance premium by decreasing your risk of flooding. So we think in a variety of ways we're working on solving this problem. Nothing overnight because the president won't cooperate, but over the next 1, 2, 5, and 10 years, we'll see tremendous improvement.
Well, hopefully it'll do some good. Instead of doing what I think the new rating is doing is getting people to drop their flood insurance, and now they're uninsured.
Yes.
And you have more claims against FEMA from that.
In fact, FEMA has done modeling. It shows that as they raise these rates, about 20% of people will drop their premiums because they can't afford them, drop their insurance because they can't afford it. Well, that concentrates the risk on a smaller risk pool, which means their rates go up even more. This is what's called an actuarial death spiral. FEMA knows this. They continue to pursue it. I'm sticking up for my policyholders in Louisiana, but I'm sticking up for the program as well, because what they're doing is going to kill the program.
And let's see, another thing on talking with the Infrastructure Act, I believe I saw that $1.4 billion was going for broadband funding in Louisiana to help, some rural areas with high-speed internet access as well.
Yeah, rural and towns as well. In the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, $65 billion was put forward to make sure that all Americans have access to high-speed, affordable internet. Louisiana, it was announced on Monday, will get $1.4 billion of that. I've been told that we're near the top in the amount of money we're receiving on a per capita basis, which frankly is somewhat related to the fact that I was involved in negotiations.
Definitely, I would think so.
Why is this important? Because there are areas in this region, but across the state, that don't have good internet. Without good internet, it's hard to have a vibrant, growing economy. Mamas want to live where they can watch Netflix on Saturday night,
Sure.
where their child, if she's having mental health issues, can get online telemental health. If the son wants to study Chinese or the daughter wants to study Mandarin or physics, they can go online. The husband may be commuting to work. She may have an online business. They pay their bills online. They shop online. She wants internet. And where a family lives depends on, happy wife, happy life.
Oh, definitely. I know.
And so you want to build a community that mama who's cares about her community, or a business which wants to invest, knows that they have internet. Second thing, after I came down here, and I'm sure you know Chet Chesson,
Sure.
port director at Port Fourchon. I went and saw him at the emergency response building, and all the electricity was down. They were running on generators, but they were sending out messages by the internet. They were posting on people's Facebook pages, if I remember correctly, or tweeting or something. But that was because the internet did not run on the electricity lines. So it's also part of our resiliency that everybody has access to this high-speed, affordable internet. That's our goal.
Yeah, make a good point. Yeah, that definitely storm response and getting the information out is critical, and having that infrastructure is very important. Is retirement, Social Security. People that have it now are worried about whether or not they'll ever have it cut, or people that are still in their early years of working or want to know that it's going to be there when they retire. And that's Social Security I'm talking about. And of course, you know that if we don't do anything, there's going to be substantial cuts in the future in 9 or so years to those benefits. Can you talk about what's being done from your end to try to address that situation?
Yeah, so Social Security, according to the people running the program, will go insolvent. It'll run out of enough money to pay its benefits in about 8 or 9 years. When that happens, by law, it can't run a deficit. So it'll cut the benefits to people currently receiving social in order to make sure it doesn't run a deficit. So the law is going to end up mandating a 24% cut in what someone's receiving from Social Security. Now, that's remarkable.
Well, that's a big hit.
That's a big hit. It will double the rate of poverty in the elderly. Now, I've worked with a group of senators, and we came up with what we call the big idea. We create a fund separate from Social Security. We don't use Social Security money at all. We put money in it, and we allow it to grow for 70 years, 70. And over time, it grows so much that it takes care of 75% of our shortfall. We repeal the law that would cut the 24%, and we allow the benefits to continue to be paid at the promised level. We get about 75%. We also, by the way, repeal WEP and GPO. Your public employees who work for the state or local government know what the windfall elimination provision is, government pension offset. We repeal that, and we do away with the retirement earnings test, which means if you go on social, you go back to work, you get a $1,000 cut in your Social Security benefit. We repeal that. We do a lot of things to make it better. We get 75% of the way there in terms of making the program whole. We need a president who will help us with the remaining 25%. That's going to be some trade-offs. You don't have to raise taxes on seniors, and you don't have to cut benefits for seniors, but you got to do something. So we got that 25% we have to do. We need a president who will work with us. Joe Biden made it clear he won't work with us. I hate to say it, but President Trump also is acting like there's no problem with Social Security. So we need a future president that will actually work to prevent this 24% cut to people who depend upon Social Security.
And it's an interesting topic because it's one I guess I could see from politically that people don't want to get involved with because they're not going to be there when it runs out. So that's why I guess there may be some hesitancy to actually fix the problem, but you got to do the things that need to be done, whether they're popular or not, or whether they may make somebody upset. But Social Security, that's a big issue that just can't be left alone.
So Jacob, if you want to be the leader of the United States of America, you got to show leadership.
Sure.
And if someone says, well, I'm going to be elected and I'm only going to serve for 4 years, but it doesn't go insolvent for 8 or 9, that's not leadership. Exactly. That's ducking an issue. By the way, if we wait till the last moment to fix the problem, the cuts will be deeper, or the taxes will have to be raised and the taxes will be higher. If we start now, we're better off. And if you ask the American people, it turns out a lot of them know that it's going insolvent. And if you ask them, well, would you rather fix it now or later? 75% of Americans from the far left to the far right, it unites Americans. Fix it now. We need a leader who will fix it now.
Of course, the reason, I guess, behind, it going insolvent has to do with, I guess, the rate of the population age as it is. Each day, I think you have so many from the boomer generation, the baby boomer generation, that have turned that retirement age, that it just keeps growing.
Okay, Jacob, you're blaming the boomers, man. You're blaming the boomers.
I hate that term.
Well, 10,000 boomers a day go into Social Security.
But not enough workers to put in during that time, I guess, now.
Well,
I'm saying to cover in the future, because we have lower population rates or workers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People say, how can this happen? Social Security started in 1936, and the average age of death was age 62. Now, there's a lot of people dying at birth, but still, the average age, if you take people who are 60, would still be somewhere around 68. When the program was fully implemented in the early 40s, there's, I think, 6 children per family. So now, instead of dying at 62, the average age is 82. If you live to be 60, you have a 50% chance of living to be 90. And instead of 6 kids per family, we have 2.2 or something like that per family. And so instead of a population that looks like a triangle, you have one that looks like a wine bottle. And here's the boomers, and then there's people older. They're the greatest generation above the boomers, but it just comes like that and it goes straight down. For those old enough, it's kind of like Twiggy's figure. You know what I'm saying? Just straight down.
Yeah, sure.
And so that has created the economic problem that we got to fix. But we need a president who will show that leadership.
And to take on the issues that maybe, that are not popular but need to get done. Like you said, you made a good point on that, on leadership, and we need some of that.
Well, I'll tell you, it's popular among seniors to make sure that it doesn't get a 24% cut.
Definitely.
It's popular to repeal weapon GPO and the Social Security tax. You can make this a winning issue.
I know we talked about one that was facing the retirement age people. Another one issue but this was facing, younger generation. The cost of college, of course, is going up tremendously. You've had people that, knowing what the cost of college was, take out large loans, and they have high student loans. And I believe the president has tried to do what he can to waive those loans, and that have already been taken place. But I know there's some efforts to see about fixing the future problems and address what the president is doing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the president speaks about loan forgiveness, but that's not really loan forgiveness, it's loan transference. People who took debts in order to go to college, make more money, the obligation to pay back that loan will be transferred to people who never took a student loan or who sacrificed to pay theirs back. Some of this is based upon hardship, but there are already programs for those who can't pay their student loans. They become disabled, they have a poorly paying job. There's already programs to help them. This is just, again, debt transference, transfer. In some cases, for a couple making $250,000, they'll have their debts transferred to other people. It's not fair. But on the other hand, we do have a problem. Sure. Some universities are charging way too much for degrees that don't really add value to someone's ability to earn a living. Some universities are enticing people into programs which most likely they'll never graduate in. So we attempt to address the underlying problem. We say, universities, you have to put this information on the internet. If I'm a student and my family and I are making a decision where to attend, whatever I look like, I'm a white female, I'm an African-American male, you name it, Hispanic, you name it, I can go on, say, from my background, if I go to this college and this curriculum, this is the likelihood I'll graduate, this is how much I'm going to have to borrow, and this is how much I'm going to earn. Now, if I'm only a 5% chance of graduating, and even if I do, I'm only going to make $30,000, but I'm borrowing $200,000, well, that's a bad business proposition. So we would require the universities to put this online. We also require the universities to have a similar offer sheet. Right now, one university will make it as if you borrow money, it's free, and the other is more honest, saying, wait a second, if you borrow money, you're going to have to pay it back. We need everybody to make it clear if you borrow money, you got to pay back. Lastly, we say that the taxpayer will not help you borrow money if you're going to a curriculum in which you're going to make less than you would have even if you didn't go to that school. There are some degrees you pay $50,000 a year for 2 years for tuition, but you only make $35,000. That's a bad deal. Now, you may want to do it, but the taxpayer shouldn't be on the hook for it.
Sure, and and again, I think the way tuition is right now, it depends. You could still go to a different college and pay a lot less to get the same degree as well. And I don't think that's ever, taken into account the people that made that decision to go to this school because I don't want to take out those loans.
If you go to Nichols and if you go to community college first, then you go to Nichols or LSU, you're going to end up with minimal debt. You go into the right curriculum, say engineering or accounting or something like that. You're going to end up making a good living, and you're going to be able to pay back your student loans. There's other degrees in which they charge you just as much as if you're going into engineering, but even if you graduate, you're unlikely to make enough money to pay back your student loans. The student should know that. They should know that this curriculum is a curriculum in which you may not graduate, but even if you do, you're going to owe a lot of money and you can't pay it back. That starts getting at the underlying problem.
It certainly is, and getting that information to the students at the right time, not after they've already made that decision, is key as well.
Yeah, and that's why in our legislation we feel like we're addressing the underlying problem, because this gives that parent, that child going to school, access to that information up front.
Okay, and let's see, another, I guess, issue in academia can touch, I don't know how you address it, but of course, it seems that in academia, they may have a specific ideology that's been trying to focus, and rather than just teaching people facts. Is that something that ever crosses your mind about combating that as well?
All the time. I'm not quite sure how to do it, except to encourage the parents and the child to investigate beforehand.
Sure.
There are organizations out there. One of them, I think, is called FIRE, F-I-R-E, which rates the amount of free speech allowed on a particular campus. And if they're super woke and they don't allow free speech, if you come from a conservative ideology, you get shut down, they will tell you that. Now, when students start voting with their feet, not going to universities which shut down certain perspectives, that's a good thing. And that will either the university will go out of business or they're going to change the way they do business.
Certainly, and make a good point. I think free speech is very important, and that used to be a primary concern for everybody. Gets, especially on college campuses, everybody. It's a public forum, let them speak. But that
well, you're an attorney.
It's changed a little.
And attorneys are so aware of the value of free speech in terms of preserving our freedoms. Sure. And sometimes people will say things, frankly, I don't like.
Exactly.
But it's their God-given, it's their constitutionally given right in order to say that. Contrast that with Russia, where if you say something against Putin, quite likely you're going to drown in your bathtub.
Or out a window fall.
Yeah, you somehow just trip out of a window. Who would think?
Well, thank you very much, Senator, for joining us. We certainly appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.